Hello and welcome to Shootin' the Breeze. I'm WECT First Alert Chief Meteorologist Gannon Medwick, and I think you're going to love this fourth episode. I'll take you behind the scenes with some of the audio tools we use, and in the debut of our First Alert Weather Bio segment, you might learn a thing or two about our very own meteorologist Claire Fry. And we'll dive back into our storm library to spotlight the 10th anniversary of Sandy, how it treated North Carolina, and what made the hurricane/superstorm infamous overall. But if you've tuned in to Shootin' the Breeze before, you know that trivia is our preferred appetizer. And though I know this episode is dropping in the heart of fall, I also know you might be thinking about what's right around the corner, winter. So in the spirit of these seasons, the question is, when did Wilmington receive its earliest measurable snow? Which date? Was it A, November 4th, B, November 12th, C, November 20th, or D, November 28th? I'll have the answer in just a moment when we wrap up Shootin' the Breeze. It was part tropical and part cold core. Together, it was a gigantic and powerful hybrid storm that would change the East Coast forever. This October marks 10 years since the fury of what came to be known as Superstorm Sandy. Hurricane Sandy was born deep in the Caribbean on October 22nd of 2012, not far from where another infamous October storm called Hazel formed in 1954. Hazel steamrolled directly into the Carolinas, but mercifully, Sandy's track was a bit farther east at our latitude as a protective upper-level trough bellied in from the west. To the north, though, a problem, as the trough handed off to a massive upper-level high. And though Sandy itself had intensified into a bruising Category 3 hurricane, this broader blocking pattern had an even stronger foundation. Sandy had nowhere to go but to swirl into and merge with the trough. Messaging ahead of Sandy would prove to be difficult for mid-Atlantic meteorologists. On one hand, the approaching hurricane was dropping in category from a 3 down to a 1 as it began to surrender energy to the cold core trough. But in doing so, Sandy was also becoming much larger, more far-reaching, and longer-lasting. Your First Alert weather team always preaches impacts over categories, and in the spirit of that, meteorologist Gary Statowski of the National Weather Service in Philadelphia issued a memorable plea to the residents of the Jersey Shore who might be skeptical of Sandy's severity. He wrote, "If you are asked to evacuate a coastal location by state and local officials, please do so. If you are still reluctant, think about your loved ones. Think about the emergency responders who will be unable to reach you when you make the panicked phone call. And think about the rescue/recovery teams who will rescue you if you are injured or recover your remains if you do not survive. Sandy is an extremely dangerous storm." Superstorm Sandy made landfall near Atlantic City, New Jersey on October 29th. The lumbering hybrid would dish strong wind, rain, and even snow to 18 U.S. states and several Canadian provinces through early November. But Sandy's signature impact was its crippling storm surge, a catastrophic wall of seawater that plowed into the Jersey Shore, New York City, and even parts of southern New England. Here, thanks to its expanding wind field, the hybrid storm was able to leverage more ocean than a tighter, purely tropical system would have. And what's more, focus all of that water into a narrowing section of coastline, a true worst-case scenario for storm surge. In all, Sandy killed more than 230 people from the Caribbean to the U.S. and Canada and inflicted $65 billion in damage. Perhaps North Carolina's most memorable and tragic blow from Sandy was the sinking of the HMS Bounty. In a failed attempt to sail around the storm, the replica tall ship made a distress call 90 miles off Cape Hatteras on October 29th of 2012. The Coast Guard was able to rescue 14 of the HMS Bounty's 16 crew members from lifeboats shortly after the call. But sadly, 2 members, including Captain Robin Walbridge, perished in Sandy's violent seas. Sandy will also be remembered in North Carolina for its road washouts on the Outer Banks. And in true hybrid fashion, it's got a tropical side and it's got a cold side. The storm pasted the North Carolina mountains with up to 3 feet of snow at Wolf Laurel Mountain. While every storm is different, Superstorm Sandy took the unconventional to the extreme. 10 years later, and God willing, for many years in the future, let us never forget the history and lessons of this ultimate hybrid storm. This behind-the-scenes segment is all about sound. And when your First Alert weather team delivers a forecast, audio is a two-way street. On the output side, for the forecast to be clear, we affix a small microphone a few inches below our mouths. For me, that's usually on my tie. And this is wired to a wireless transmitter pack, which we clip to our belt or leg. An input side is needed too, because broadcast meteorologists like us don't deliver forecasts with scripts. Instead, we ad-lib. So we have to have a producer tell us cues to make sure we stay on time. Or in rare instances, if breaking news or another emergency require us to pitch our narrative in a different direction. And so for that, we wear a separate earpiece pack called an IFB, which stands for interruptible feedback. Together, these 2 audio instruments work to keep your First Alert weather segments sounding crisp and flowing seamlessly within the broader newscast. To keep your First Alert forecast fresh on TV, radio, the web, the WECT weather app, and social media, it takes a team of meteorologists. Claire Fry joined the team in the spring of 2021 by way of Mooresville and then North Carolina State University. It's awesome having her on the team, and recently she and I sat down to shoot the breeze. So if you head over to WECT.com, scroll down, meet the team, you get that bio for Claire and all of us, and that's one thing. And Claire's here. That's quite another. I'm glad to see you. Thanks for joining us here on Shoot the Breeze.
Absolutely. I've been wanting to join it since it started.
Glad to hear it. There is one question I have based on that bio. You mentioned a tornado that you witnessed at a very young age. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. I was 10 years old whenever we were visiting my great-grandmother's house. She was 104 when she passed away. So we were going to collect some of her things just to remember her by before we get rid of the house. And I remember it being a beautiful summer day. And about an hour later, we step outside and it's hailing. The skies are dark. My mom and I remember talking about how greenish the skies were. I looked across the street and one of the police officers had actually parked and was pointing up at the sky, noticing some rotation and talking about it, got in his car, zoomed off, And I just remember being absolutely astonished to look up and see a funnel cloud begin making its way toward the ground. I didn't understand as a kid how a cloud could come down and cause damage like that. And so from that point forward, for the years to come, I would go home and I would type up tornadoes forming across the United States and just watch videos and try to understand the science. So I knew I had to go a little bit more in depth with it. So naturally, meteorology was the next step once I got out of high school.
Got to dive in further. What part of North Carolina was this?
This was in Lincolnton,
Okay.
Shelby.
Towards Shelby, yeah, west side of Charlotte. Beautiful area. You're in another beautiful part of the state now here in Wilmington. You got the meteorology chops and you joined the First Alert weather team. You've had some gnarly weather experiences and probably some memorable forecasts already. Talk about some of those.
Yep, well, the most recent has got to be Hurricane Ian, and with the way my schedule was lined up, I came back from my weekend on the day that we were seeing it impact South Carolina and North Carolina. And just that morning, being able to jump in, it's a challenge to go from days off to, just back on with hurricane. And being able to tag team a tornado warning with you was a very nice learning experience for me, being the newest meteorologist, and just being able to see how a tropical system can impact our area, being that it was a Category 1, but just have an idea for future reference and also have a, hurricane under my belt as well.
It all goes in the memory bank. You've been with us now for about 18 months, year and a half or so, and we've had plenty of sunny days too here in southeastern North Carolina. Plenty of time, I'm sure, for you to get out and explore. What have you enjoyed most?
I would have to say, as much as I love being in the new town, visiting downtown, I think it's just the people. I've loved getting to know the locals here. I've always been a North Carolina native. I grew up towards Charlotte. I went to NC State, so I got to know Raleigh, but the people here are just so kind and caring. And honestly, I've been so enthusiastic just to meet all these people because they've been so nice and welcoming since I've been here. And honestly, I think the people are going to be what holds me down for the years to come.
I'm glad to hear it. And I also know that you've been welcoming to the four-legged set as well. You have a nice pet family going. Tell us about that.
Yes, so I have two pets. I have a kitty cat. His name is Arlo, and then I have a purebred German Shepherd, and her name is Athena, and she is so sweet. I got Arlo first. I got him from a animal shelter actually in Charlotte. It ended up being a last-minute decision just to go see if I wanted any pets, and I ended up... Just go see.
Just look.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That typically isn't what happens, right? We go, and I pick him up, and he's purring, and I'm like, oh, wow, I can't leave without him. So I take him home. He's the most affectionate, sweet cat I've ever had in my life, and with cats, it can be a little dicey. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, with any animal, really. But he's been a great addition to the home, and then, of course, I had to get him a friend, so... The next step was getting Athena, and taking her home, and they've been best pals. They cuddle, they play, they do just about everything together.
Well, you certainly get it done, even with that demanding schedule at home and here in the First Alert Forecast Center. Claire, thanks for taking some time to join us here on Shootin' the Breeze.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, let's see how you did on this episode's trivia question. And when it comes to snow in Wilmington, there are actually two benchmark early dates. November 12th is the earliest a trace of snow has fallen in Wilmington. And that was actually relatively recently in 2013. For the port city's earliest measurable snow record, though, you have to go all the way back to November 20th of 1879, when an inch and a half of snow fell. So congratulations if you said C, November 20th. That's it for this fourth episode of Shootin' the Breeze. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll connect with me on these platforms. If you have a question about a topic you saw here on Shootin' the Breeze, if you have a suggestion for a Cape Fear or Carolina weather item you'd like to see covered in the future, or if you just want to say hello and what's the good word. And as always, WECT.com/anywhere is a great place to find more unique WECT OTT content. Hope I'll see you for the next episode of Shootin' the Breeze, and take care.